What if the biggest winner of the confrontation in the Persian Gulf isn't even in the Persian Gulf? What if, while the United States spends billions enforcing a naval blockade, and Iran bleeds $400 million a day in lost oil revenue? What if there's a country on the other side of the world that is quietly emerging stronger from every single day this confrontation continues? A country that isn't firing a single shot, isn't losing a single dollar, and isn't saying a single word. That country is China. And what it's gaining from this confrontation might be worth more than anything either side could win on the battlefield. To understand why China is emerging stronger from a confrontation it isn't even fighting in, you need to follow three threads: energy, technology, and time. Start with energy. When the Strait of Hormuz was effectively shut down, global oil prices surged. For most countries, this was an economic crisis. For the Gulf states, it threatened their entire revenue model. For European nations, it meant rising fuel costs, transportation disruptions, and inflationary pressure. For the United States, it meant pain at the gas pump, the kind of pain that shows up in approval ratings and midterm projections. But China was in a fundamentally different position. Over the past decade, Beijing has built the largest strategic petroleum reserves in the world outside of the United States. When the strait closed, China had months of supply already stored. It wasn't scrambling. It was prepared. More importantly, China had spent years quietly reducing its dependence on Middle Eastern oil, not by finding alternative fossil fuel sources, but by building an entirely different energy infrastructure. Today, China controls roughly 70% of the global supply chain for solar panels, wind turbines, batteries, and electric vehicles. It dominates the production of the critical minerals and rare earths that power these technologies. While the rest of the world panics about oil choke points, China has been building an economy that increasingly doesn't need them. Not fully, not yet, but far more than any other major power. And here is the number that puts this in perspective. Approximately 85% of the energy China consumes is now produced domestically. Compare that to Europe or Japan, where energy import dependence remains a fundamental vulnerability. The confrontation in the Strait didn't create China's energy advantage, but it made that advantage visible to the entire world and far more valuable. Now follow the second thread: technology. The confrontation between the United States and Iran has been, among other things, a live demonstration of modern military capability. Every system deployed, every drone launched, every missile intercepted, every electronic countermeasure activated, generates intelligence. China is watching all of it. Every engagement reveals something about how American systems perform under real conditions, how carrier strike groups operate in contested waters, how air defense networks respond to drone swarms, how electronic countermeasures interact with autonomous systems, how logistics chains hold up under sustained pressure. This is intelligence that cannot be obtained from simulations or exercises. It can only come from observing an actual confrontation, and China is studying every detail. Why? Because Beijing has its own strategic objective that involves many of the same variables. Taiwan. The Taiwan Strait, which separates Taiwan from mainland China, is another narrow waterway surrounded by contested territorial claims. Any future operation involving Taiwan would require naval power projection, air superiority, drone warfare, electronic countermeasures, and logistics sustainment. The exact same capabilities being tested right now in the Persian Gulf. Singapore's foreign minister put it bluntly: if the United States and China go to conflict in the Pacific, what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz right now is just a dry run. China is not just watching a distant confrontation, it is studying its own potential future. And then there is the third thread, the one that may matter most of all. There is something that separates China's strategic position from that of the United States, in a way that is rarely discussed but profoundly important. China does not have elections. This is not a statement about the superiority of one political system over another, but it is a statement about strategic patience and how it shapes decision-making during a prolonged confrontation. In the United States, every policy decision is filtered through the lens of the next election cycle. Gas prices matter because voters feel them. Stock market drops matter because retirement accounts shrink. Casualty reports matter because families vote. The political cost of sustaining a confrontation is measured in weeks and months, not years and decades. China operates on a fundamentally different timeline. There are no midterms. There is no opposition party preparing attack ads about fuel prices. There is no cable news cycle amplifying every setback into a political crisis. This means that Beijing can absorb short-term economic pain, rising commodity prices, slower growth, disrupted trade routes, without the same political consequences that Washington faces. The Chinese leadership can think in decades, while American leadership is often forced to think in news cycles. And this patience extends to how China is positioning itself diplomatically. While the United States has been focused on the kinetic dimensions of the confrontation, the naval blockade, the air operations, the Strait Control, China has been quietly expanding its diplomatic influence across the region. Beijing helped facilitate the peace talks in Pakistan. It positioned itself as a neutral mediator, as a country that stands for dialogue and resolution rather than force. It criticized the confrontation without naming the United States directly, using language about the law of the jungle, returning to international relations. Is this sincere? That depends on your perspective. China buys more than 90% of Iran's oil exports. It provides satellite navigation data through the Beidou system. It supplies dual-use technologies that have military applications. The line between neutrality and quiet support is, at best, blurred. But from the perspective of the dozens of countries in the global south that are watching this confrontation unfold, countries that depend on stable energy markets, that want alternatives to US dominance, that are looking for a partner that doesn't start confrontations, China's message is landing. The message is simple. The United States starts fires. We help put them out. Whether or not that's accurate, it's effective. And it's reshaping how much of the world thinks about the global power balance. There is another dimension to this story that extends far beyond the current confrontation, and it may be the most consequential of all. While the world has been focused on the military developments in the Persian Gulf, China has been accelerating a technological transformation that is redefining what it means to be a global power. Recent assessments show that China now leads in 57 of 64 critical technology sectors, particularly in advanced materials, energy systems, and increasingly in artificial intelligence. Chinese universities have climbed into the top ranks globally. Research and development spending rivals that of the United States, and the gap is closing faster than most Western analysts predicted even 2 years ago. But what makes China's technological advance different from previous tech races is how it integrates with its industrial base. In the West, breakthrough research often takes years, sometimes decades, to translate into commercial or military applications. The process involves multiple institutions, regulatory frameworks, procurement cycles, and political considerations. In China, the path from research to deployment is dramatically shorter. The government can direct resources, coordinate between military and civilian sectors, and scale production in ways that democratic systems simply cannot replicate at the same speed. Consider one example from this year alone. In March 2026, China became the first country to bring a commercial brain-computer interface to market, beating Elon Musk's Neuralink to that milestone, despite the American company's significant head start and funding advantages. Or consider the robotics demonstration in Beijing, where, for the first time, robots outran humans in a half marathon. A year earlier, The best robot needed 2 hours for 20 kilometers. This year, the fastest completed it in under 50 minutes, faster than any human being has ever run the distance. These are not isolated achievements. They are data points in a pattern of acceleration that touches every domain, from artificial intelligence to quantum computing, from advanced manufacturing to autonomous systems. And this brings us back to drones, the technology that has reshaped the current confrontation more than any other. China is not just a producer of commercial drones. It is the dominant global supplier. The same technologies that power consumer quadcopters, miniaturized sensors, efficient batteries, advanced flight controllers, AI-enabled navigation, are the foundation of military drone systems. Reports have emerged that China is testing technology to charge drones mid-flight using ground-based microwave beams directed by laser targeting systems. If scalable, this would eliminate the fundamental limitation of battery-powered drones, endurance, and create the possibility of drone systems that can remain airborne indefinitely. The confrontation in the Gulf has demonstrated in real time that traditional air defense systems struggle against low-cost drone swarms. Billion-dollar missile systems are being exhausted by drones that cost a fraction of their interceptors. China is watching this equation play out, and it already has the industrial base to produce drones at a scale that no other country can match. If the future of military power is defined by autonomous systems, artificial intelligence, and mass production of low-cost platforms, and everything happening in the Persian Gulf suggests it is, then China is not catching up. It is already positioned at the front. Perhaps the most important lesson China is drawing from this confrontation is not about any individual technology or tactic. It is about choke points and how they can be weaponized. The Strait of Hormuz has demonstrated in vivid detail what happens when a critical passage is disrupted. Global oil prices spike, economies stagger, alliances fracture under pressure, and the country that controls the choke point, or that is least dependent on it, holds enormous leverage. China has been on the receiving end of choke point pressure before. The United States has used its control over the global financial system, the dollar, the SWIFT network, access to American markets, as a form of economic leverage for years. Trade restrictions, technology export controls, semiconductor bans. All of these are choke points of a different kind. But what the Hormuz confrontation has shown is that choke points work both ways. If the United States can blockade the Strait of Hormuz to pressure Iran, the same logic could theoretically be applied to the Strait of Malacca, the narrow passage between Malaysia and Indonesia through which roughly 80% of China's oil imports pass. A Malacca blockade would be, for China, what Hormuz is for Iran, an existential economic threat. China has clearly been thinking about this. The Belt and Road Initiative, with its overland pipelines through Central Asia and its port developments across the Indian Ocean, is in part a response to the Malacca vulnerability, diversifying energy routes, building alternative pathways, reducing dependence on any single choke point. And now, watching the Hormuz confrontation unfold, China is learning in real time exactly how a naval blockade is implemented, how it is enforced, where the weaknesses are, and how a targeted nation responds. This is a masterclass in choke point strategy, delivered free of charge by the United States Navy. The question is what China does with these lessons. If Beijing is studying how to defend against a Malacca blockade, how to keep its own energy flowing if the same pressure is applied to it, then the Hormuz confrontation has provided invaluable intelligence. If Beijing is studying how to implement its own pressure on choke points, the Taiwan Strait, the South China Sea, the first island chain, then the implications are even more significant. Either way, China is not just watching, it is learning, and it is preparing. There is one final dimension to this story, and it may be the most destabilizing of all. The confrontation in the Gulf has sent a signal to every country that depends on the United States for security. And the signal is not reassuring. The Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait have spent decades and hundreds of billions of dollars purchasing American defense systems. They aligned themselves with Washington. They hosted American bases. They integrated their militaries with American command structures. And when Iran launched waves of drones against them, many of those expensive systems struggled to cope. The cost equation was inverted. The response was slow. The protection was incomplete. For countries watching from the sidelines, particularly in Asia, the lesson is uncomfortable. If the United States cannot fully protect its closest partners in the Gulf, can it protect allies in the Pacific? If American defense systems struggle against Iranian drones, how would they perform against Chinese capabilities that are, by most assessments, significantly more advanced? This perception, whether fully accurate or not, is reshaping how countries calculate their strategic alignments. More nations are seeking closer cooperation with Beijing, not because they believe China is a better partner. Most are quite pragmatic about that, but because having an alternative gives them leverage. It gives them choices. And in a world where the old certainties about American power are eroding, choices are the most valuable currency there is. China didn't start the confrontation in the Gulf. It didn't fire a single shot. It didn't deploy a single ship, but it may emerge from it with more strategic advantage than any nation that actually participated. And that, perhaps, is the most important lesson of all. In the 21st century, you don't have to fight a confrontation to win one. Sometimes, all you have to do is watch and prepare. The Strait of Hormuz has always been about more than oil. It's about power. Who has it, who projects it, and who is quietly accumulating it while others are distracted. China is not in this confrontation, but it is in every calculation surrounding it. Every barrel of oil stockpiled, every technology tested, every alliance questioned, every choke point studied. The question is not whether China is watching. It's what China is building while everyone else is looking the other way. If this helped you understand the bigger picture behind the headlines, subscribe, turn on notifications, and check out other videos on our channel. We're breaking down every layer of this shift as it unfolds.